mechanic from St. Augustine, Florida. So my background was cars, high performance, hot rods, customization, engine swaps, and then I realized that helping rich people drive around in circles doesn't make the world a better place. And that everyone around me basically was focused on the next 1/10 of a second off the lap time and the next Corona Light beer, and that's basically it. And I was like, you know what, these aren't my peers, and as much as I will always like cars, there's more that I can do with this knowledge base, this technology, and doing something meaningful. So I went back to school, studied strategic communications, and now I teach actually. So I've taught automation and robotics. I'm currently subbing MTech about 5 hours a week, and that gives me a lot of free time. So actually I'm going to do a quick announcement. If any of you guys haven't seen the Facebook page, I would like to teach you guys, or anybody interested, how to work on cars. And if you're interested, I'm trying to get a group together. I'm trying to get cars that need some fixing together. But I really enjoy connecting with people about these technical concepts and seeing the light bulb go on. And when you understand a little bit more about how the mechanical world works, it explains so much in your life. And I like giving that sensation to people. So anyway, that's my plug. If you're interested, come talk to me or comment on the Facebook page or a Facebook post that I made on the Oasis page. But anyway, the other thing I do is I am at Mars for half of the year. So let's get into it. This is the Mars Desert Research Station in Hanksville, Utah. So about 3.5 hours away. Hanksville's official slogan is, "Where the hell is Hanksville?" Pardon me. And the answer is, it is about 1.5 hours west of Grand Junction, just off of I-70. So kind of near Moab, kind of near Capitol Reef, kind of near Escalante, in the middle of nowhere. It's a town of 250 people. It's the perfect place for somewhere that's very isolated, which is great for us, right? So we have a Mars research facility, as you can see there on the bottom right, and I am the site manager. So crews will fly in. They'll be there for 2 to 4 weeks at a time. It's usually a crew of 4 to 7 people. And I make sure nothing goes wrong. I act as mission support. I make sure they have plenty of water, I take care of their trash, I stock their pantry, and I try to remain out of sight because these crews are on Mars. So why would you go there? What do you study there? So the main thing that we study is actually what it feels like to be on Mars. So our facility is not airtight. In other words, there's no atmosphere control. We can't simulate it down to that fine of a detail. First of all, it'd be prohibitively expensive, right? It would be 20 times the cost of our current base. But second off, the main thing that we study is the sensation of it, right? After 2 weeks out in the desert, or 4 if you're an ambitious crew, you feel like you're on Mars. You feel like you're depending on the spacesuit. And it's fascinating to see the mindset switch over and people kind of give themselves to the simulation. So we study that. Hanksville is one of the closest landscapes we have on Earth to Mars. In fact, I've heard several PhD geologists and astrogeologists say it's top of the top. It is the best you can get. And why that is Hanksville, like everywhere in Utah, used to have water. It used to be underwater, actually. And so as things have eroded and the water has drained away over millions of years, Hanksville looks really unique, and that points us to where water was in the past, and where water was, life might be. So that's something that we can learn here and then extrapolate with where we send the rovers on Mars. If there's liquid water and we know it, that's a probable place to look for microbial life, for things like that. Also, my job, the logistics of keeping a crew alive in the desert for 2 to 4 weeks, The energy, the water. As I'm going to talk about in the next slide, everything is more difficult in a space environment. So we do a lot of study on policies and procedures. So how do you do something safely? How do you minimize the risks involved? And then the last thing that we study is oftentimes crews will bring their own designs for a rover, some kind of mechanical thing that they'll bring out and torture test, right? We have the winds, we have the sand, we have the crazy temperature swings. So it's a great place to subject your design and see, okay, is this usable in a spacesuit? Can I see this screen with a fishbowl on my head? In stark contrast to where Mars seems to be going based on the news, we really focus on tangible, tactile, small progress. You don't have to be a billionaire in order to do something meaningful and important to get us one step closer to Mars. We'll just save my soapbox about that for the end. All right, in space, everything's trying to kill you. The gravity, the lack of atmosphere, the extreme cold, the radiation, the fact that you can only bring so much because every pound of supplies you bring requires 1/10 of a pound more fuel. And if you bring 10 pounds of supplies, you need 1 more pound of fuel, which means you need 1/10 of a pound of fuel to carry your fuel. This is a famous problem in science called the rocket problem. It's basically the more you bring, the exponentially more fuel you have to get it there. So everything is very stripped down and minimalist, and that means a lot of cognitive load. You've got to think about everything. Nothing comes naturally in space. Our bodies didn't evolve for zero gravity, right? And so it resets every system in our nervous system. So we leverage as much as we can, as many tools as we can to try and not take risks, and also to not overload ourselves, right? The more things we can do automatically, the better. So I studied automation in my associate's degree, and that was kind of like a manufacturing focus, right? Robots and assembly lines and whatever. But we use automation a lot on the base as well. And that basically just helps us turn the solar panels on as soon as it's sunny, or even a thermostat is a basic example of automation. This idea that systems will kind of trigger themselves and manage as much as possible the day-to-day of the system. And this is a great tool. This is a tool that we see a lot in the outside world as well. You're starting to see smart homes, Google Fi or Alexa being able to turn your lights on and off. And that has its pros, and it also has its cons. One quick soapbox. Automation is not AI, okay? I am not a fan of AI, point blank, because especially in a research setting, AI destroys data. AI doesn't have intelligence, it has prediction. It's almost like clicking the middle recommendation on your keyboard over and over to write a sentence, right? It's just putting together concepts or tokens that most likely occur after the last one, right? So it can make a guess, oh, I've seen this sentence structure before, and I've seen these words in this order before, here you go. But when you're in the business of primary data, research, original findings, that's death. Because it's going to average together everything that you found and compare it to what we had previously. And so you don't discover anything new that way, because your new findings are all averaged out with what we've already seen. So AI is really dangerous. It's also really inefficient, okay? I saw a slide back in my associate's degree that was like, oh, we taught this FANUC robot, which is a very classic disembodied robot arm. You'll see it in manufacturing a lot, they're yellow. We taught this Fanuc robot how to load this box using AI. It took 14,000 hours and a billion different iterations of code before it learned. And it's like, well, humans can tell it what to do and save 99.9% of that time and energy. So AI can be useful, but we stay away from it in research. All right, soapbox over. Thank you guys. Automation itself can be dangerous as well. So I'll give you a great example of a company I love to hate. Tesla. Tesla's full self-driving is anything but. It is an advanced cruise control system, and it's the worst of all worlds. In other words, what humans excel at is being actively engaged, paying attention, doing things that we feel bring progress or bring a reward pathway, and keep our focus, right? We suck at sitting there doing nothing and waiting for something to go wrong and not doing anything and paying attention anyway, right? If we're sitting there and it's our job to make sure nothing goes wrong, but we're not engaged, we can't do it. We're terrible at it. Ironically, the opposite is true for computers. Computers are amazing at not forgetting things, right? At monitoring a situation and alerting or triggering something when something goes wrong in the background. But in terms of predicting, or in terms of guessing at what a new situation might bring, in terms of eye contact and subconscious gestures and all those kinds of things, AI is horribly bad. So, in my opinion, things like autonomous cars would be better, this technology would be better served as a gamification. Something that motivates a human to stay focused and stay engaged. And maybe the computer can highlight potential threats, or maybe it can recognize which lane is moving the fastest and try to, whatever, or assist with tasks that don't gain a lot of human focus. But I don't think this implementation of full self-driving is where it's at. I think it's the worst of all worlds. Another good thing to point out with Teslas, although unfortunately it's every car now, is touchscreen controls, right? Who here misses a knob? I wish we had knobs again. I wish we had real buttons, right?
Car still has it, you can ride it with music.
Yeah, there we go. Well, it's funny that you say that because car manufacturers are absolutely ditching touchscreens in the coming models and replacing them with real tactile buttons again because so many consumers complained. So unfortunately, we're in the trough, and we're going to improve from here. But yeah, touchscreens are cheap. I know we think of them as expensive when we've spent $1,000 on an iPhone, but actually, this is cheaper to produce than a real button, or a suite of real buttons. And it can do so many different things. But the problem is, when you're looking at the road, you have no feedback. You have no information coming into your hand about what you're doing, right? Humans need tactile feedback in order to know what we're doing. So just like automation can do things in the background, our bodies can too, right? Our bodies can know, oh yeah, I hit that seat heater on button. And it's natural, and you don't even have to think about it. You're focused on driving, you don't have to look. And that button, that tactile pressure, that click, it tells us everything we need to know, and it never moves. There's never anything there other than the seat heater button in this case. So this is another example of kind of automation gone wrong, and how your body can create the same kind of feedback loop or the same kind of information to deal with this in the background. So humans are great at context and predictions as long as we have clear expectations. Oslo and Helsinki had 0 pedestrian deaths in 2019, which is crazy because so many more people walk there than here, right? 0. How do they do that? Paint. It's easy, right? All you've got to do is very clearly communicate where people are supposed to be and not be, and if possible, try to remove the overlap with cars. If you can eliminate the opportunity to fail, that's so much better than creating some kind of fancy technology to try to help in some way, or try to predict, or try to analyze. Like, just put the people in the cars in separate places. Or, if you can't do that, at the very least, make it very clear what's what and when, and the expectations. Humans are great at that. So, the MDRS is studying automation and technology, but we're also studying humans, because the human element is irreplaceable. It is irreplaceable, and it's more powerful than most people realize. All right, so my mom is an occupational therapist, and her whole spiel is brain and body integration. The idea that a lot of what we experience, let me just speak for myself. As somebody who's a little bit on the spectrum and a little bit ADHD, a lot of what I experience is things that ought to be automatic that aren't. In other words, sensory sensations, sounds, textures, whatever, feeling threatened. So if you have anxiety or depression, then your equilibrium is off, and that's a subconscious thing. In other words, my mom takes people who have coping mechanisms like telling themselves they're safe, or stimming, or whatever, and tries to teach their body how to do that in the background, so that their body can do that, that work for them and bring them back up to equilibrium without the cognitive load of having to tell themselves, okay, this tag in the back of my shirt is not bothering me and it's fine, and I, talk themselves through it, right? If you can move that load from the thinking part of your brain to the part of the brain that's designed for it, autonomously, then you're free to live your life without that burden. So these are 2 TED Talks, and I'll just play short excerpts. I really recommend both of these in full if you can. I'll send the links if you like. But here we go.
Is why do we and other animals have brains? Not all species on our planet have brains, so if we want to know what the brain is for, let's think about why we evolved one. Is why do we and other animals have brains? Not all species on our planet have brains, so if we want to know what the brain is for, let's think about why we evolved one.
Any guesses, real quick? Why do we have brains?
To remember.
To remember, okay.
Reason. Helps us get out of danger.
Yeah, okay. That you're getting closer.
Problem solve.
Problem solving, okay. All right, good guesses.
To control our body.
Hey, all right. Have you seen this before?
I have not.
Okay. You're getting real close now. Here we go.
Now you may reason that we had one to perceive the world or to think, and that's completely wrong. If you think about this question for any length of time, it's blindingly obvious why we have a brain. We have a brain for one reason and one reason only, and that's to produce adaptable and complex movements. There is no other reason to have a brain. Think about it. Movement is the only way you have of affecting the world around you. That's not quite true. There's one other way, and that's...
What is it? What's one other way that we control our external circumstances?
Instinct?
Speech takes movement.
Speech takes movement. It's not speech.
Telepathy.
Telepathy. Yeah, there we go. Listen, can you teach me that? That'd be nice.
That'd be a cool skill.
All right, he's going to give it away here.
to sweating. But apart from that,
Sweating, that's it.
everything else goes through contractions of muscles. So think about communication, speech, gestures, writing, sign language. They're all mediated through contractions of your muscles. So it's really important to remember that sensory, memory, and cognitive processes are all important, but they're only important to either drive or suppress future movements. There can be no evolutionary advantage to laying down memories of childhood or perceiving the colour of a rose if it doesn't affect the way you're going to move later in
Yeah,
life.
you have the links to this.
Now, for those who don't believe this
Yes.
argument, we have trees and grass on our planet without the brain, but the clinching evidence is this animal here, the humble sea squirt. Rudimentary animal, has a nervous system, swims around in the ocean in its juvenile life, and on some point in its life it implants on a rock, and the first thing it does in implanting on that rock, which it never leaves, is to digest its own brain and nervous system for food. So once you don't need to move, you don't need the luxury of that brain. And this animal is often taken as an analogy to what happens in universities when professors get tenure.
Yeah.
But that's...
Yeah. Okay, so comments about the humble sea squirt. Anybody have thoughts about that?
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of nice.
Right, yeah. Mindless existence like we all crave. Yeah, it's fascinating to think that a brain is for movement. Let's hear what this next presenter has to say.
Now, I want to try and
Go ahead.
demonstrate to you that language didn't arise from vocal calls, it arose from gestures. That language started from making gestures, and I put one hand in my pocket so that I won't demonstrate too volubly, but I've still got one I can wave around. One piece of evidence for that actually comes from the monkey brain. And that takes us back about 30 or 40 million years in terms of a common ancestor. There's an area, a circuit in the monkey brain that is dedicated to making grasp actions, to reaching out and picking things up. It's called the mirror system because that system is active whenever the monkey reaches out for something, or when it sees another animal, or person even, reaching out and making the same movement. So it maps what the monkey sees onto what the monkey can do. Some people have called it a monkey see, monkey do circuit. Now it turns out that the equivalent circuit in the human brain is the language circuit. And you'll see that on the slide there. So that's the language areas in the brain seem to have arisen from this mirror circuit in the monkey brain. So in the course of evolution, that circuit seems to have been taken over, or at least used, partly to deal with language. Now, moving forward a bit in evolution towards ourselves, no one has ever been able to teach a great ape to talk, or come anywhere near it. Then people had the idea that maybe we can teach them to sign, to gesture. And there have been a number of cases, I've shown a couple of them there, in which quite reasonable conversations have been had between humans and apes by use of sign language or something like it. So they can ask or make simple requests and be understood, and the person can respond.
All right, so kind of building this concept that the human body is what grows the human brain, right? The idea that the body is why we have a brain, and it's also a huge resource for us. Now, I've just got an alarm, I only have 5 minutes left, so I'll try to be fairly quick.
Now, I want to try and demonstrate.
All right, so we'll go ahead and skip this slide, but this is the modality of therapy that my mom does. And the idea is certain movements and certain sensory inputs and certain patterns will actually turn on parts of your brain and help the sensory processing or whatever become more automatic. So if we have someone who toe walks, maybe they have anxiety or whatever, and they, as a kid, were just a compulsive toe walker, that is a body symptom for a brain response, right? Fight, flight, freeze, vagus nerve, all those kinds of things. Shout out to Stephen Porges. And so the idea is, as you make the person feel more safe, and you teach the body that the body's not under threat, you're not ready to run everywhere, right? That naturally takes care of itself. So my mom doesn't work with feet and ankle. She works with the body and the nervous system to take that stress level down. Same thing with ADHD. A lot of times so like my cousin had a difficulty with converging his focus. Literally his eyes didn't point at the same thing, right? When he was paying attention to you, he was listening peripherally. You had to look away in order to hear you, which is really interesting, and it came with all kinds of diagnoses for autism, ADHD, whatever. But the second that, and he even would sit like this, his whole posture was divergent. And as my mom taught his body to focus and converge on a single thing, voila, what do you know? Everything got fixed. So this brain-body connection, as far as the body being not only a tool to take care of things that are important automatically, but also a tool to regulate your nervous system and your brain. I mean, we've all felt how nice it is to meditate together for 5 minutes. And this is just a step further, a step into tactile sensations, patterns, movement patterns that teach your brain how to do things automatically so that you don't have to think through it.
David, that's really interesting. In society, we will talk about physical therapy. Occupational therapy gets overlooked. Think about it at every stage of life, even with dementia and aging.
Yes.
Occupational needs to be brought up higher levels
Yes.
or strategized
Yes.
for its impact. This is really important to understand.
Well, and it's really fascinating because dementia patients often lose hand grasp abilities, right?
Yeah.
Well, the Latin root of grasp is like prehensile, right? A tail that can grasp something. Or apprehend, right? Grab that villain, right? But it's also comprehend, right? The Latin root of grasp is also understand. So there is a strong, strong link between manual dexterity and other reflexes and mental faculties. Hands grasp is another reflex that my mom works.
Their whole life becomes a touch screen, oddly enough. If they can't touch things, it's like a smooth touch screen and they're not getting feedback. And that would lend to dementia.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
so fascinating.
Absolutely.
Was that your mom on the previous one?
No, that's not. So that is Dr. Moskotova. She's the creator of the modality that my mom uses. She's brilliant. She's a PhD Russian physician. She was a normal PhD psychologist, a cognitive psychologist who worked a lot with trauma, and then just found that cognitive talking therapy was not enough for a lot of the clients she saw. And she went back to Vygotsky and a bunch of other people who were working on this brain-body connection thing, and just went forward from there, basically.
Wow.
So it's usually done on a massage table, but there are active versions of it as well. When I helped my mom in the clinic with, kids or teenagers, we would do a lot of active stuff in the gym. And the whole idea is basically, connecting the right sensation to the right pattern and the right movement, and basically teaching your body to do those things automatically. So I have some bullet points here, but the whole idea is you want to cultivate in your life these tactile things that give your body feedback and recruit your body, recruit your dexterity, recruit your brain in such a way that everything is on the same page. So I've just taken up photography with a real camera that has switches and buttons and knobs, and it's hard. But it's so satisfying, and it absolutely connects my concept, the brain, to my tactile sensation, to a result. And any kind of art is super useful for that. Also, repairing stuff. I've been lucky enough to be a nerd my whole life, and tinkered and fixed, and it's been RC cars and then real cars and whatever. And that not only is fun to understand the world around you, but also it helps you understand yourself, because you get in the habit of a lot of mental dexterity and physical dexterity along with it. I'm a big fan of stick shift cars. I think anything that can involve you in where you're going and what you're doing is a good idea. So stick shift cars, motorcycles, sailboats, kayaks. Of course, we all wish we were in a 15-minute city.